Do you remember the Capitol siege? Do you remember the police officer who died during the siege? The police officer killed by a pro-Trump mob? Well, turns out this was all just a conspiracy to defame former US President Donald Trump. Liberal media has been lying to you for a month, and it's time to expose them now. Hi and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Sanbir Singh Ranhotra, and in this video we'll expose the American media's inhuman and false tirade against President Trump and his supporters over the death of Brian Sicknick. The Capitol siege was a landmark moment. For many, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to defame the then US President Donald Trump and his supporters over their alleged involvement in the incident. And to top it all, Trump haters went as far as politicizing a Capitol cop's death. We are talking about Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. Trump haters have been relentlessly using Sicknick's unfortunate death to intensify their hate campaign against the former US President Donald Trump. For the past 1 month, the anti-Trump media has been saying that Sicknick was killed after being struck by a fire extinguisher during the Capitol siege. But the media version is again far from reality and a dastardly attempt to defame Trump supporters. The fire extinguisher theory gained traction after a report published by the New York Times on January 8th. The report is titled, "He Dreamed of Being a Police Officer, Then Was Killed by a Pro-Trump Mob." NYT claimed on Wednesday, pro-Trump supporters attacked that citadel of democracy, that is the Capitol, overpowered Mr. Sicknick, who was 42, and struck him in the head with a fire extinguisher, according to 2 law enforcement officials. With a bloody gash in his head, Mr. Sicknick was rushed to the hospital and placed on life support. He died on Thursday evening. But the report stands amended. New York Times added a clarification of sorts that reads, "New information has emerged regarding the death of the Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick that questions the initial cause of his death, provided by officials close to the Capitol Police." Let us tell you what this new information is. While the mainstream media narrative was that Sicknick succumbed to the injuries sustained on being attacked by a fire extinguisher, KHOU in Houston had a different version. It had no mention of the officer being struck by a fire extinguisher. Rather, it claimed that Sicknick died due to the stroke that occurred at the Capitol during riots. Yet, for 1 whole month, Trump was being defamed over Brian Sicknick's death. A brief look at Twitter will expose how Trump is still being blamed for the incident. While NYT conveniently reports, law enforcement officials initially said Mr. Sicknick was struck with a fire extinguisher, but weeks later, police sources and investigators were at odds over whether he was hit. Medical experts have said he did not die of blunt force trauma, according to one law enforcement official. Is what the American mainstream media did just a mistake? This sounds worse. The newspaper outlets and corporate media houses that claim to fight disinformation have spent an entire month making up some abominable stories. How did the fire extinguisher theory even come into the picture? And even after the autopsy was performed, there was no immediate rectification by media houses that claim to be in the know of things. Had it not been for the pressure exerted by the right-wing media, the mainstream media houses would have never corrected themselves. The alleged fire extinguisher angle behind Sicknick's death was thus a grotesque and shameless conspiracy to slander Trump supporters.